Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Vitalogy podcast. And my name is Josh Rose, and I'm back. I was gone last week, and I brought a friend.
Well, hello, friend.
Hello, friend.
I cannot believe I get to be. It's like being in the Holy of Holies.
Oh, come on! This is your first time host, long time listener.
That's right.
This is Pastor Scott Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, let me hear you applaud. I should have one of those buttons that does the applause, the fake applause. If I was a real podcast host, man, we would have all those sorts of things. We'd have lots of that stuff. But Scott is here.
I'm here,
and I'm so glad you are. Scott preached this last Sunday, and so if you haven't listened, you can pause right now. And you can come back and finish this podcast after you go on to our other podcast feed, one of our others. We have 3. The Vitalogy podcast, of course, is at the top of your list. It's the top of everybody's list. And then there's our sermon podcast, and which oddly gets more views. What's up with that? But anyway, and then I'm
not
joking.
this week. It won't.
No. Oh, come on, that's not true. And then we have a Daily Field podcast. And so those are all under Emmanuel Faith. And you can go to efcc.org/podcasts, and you can find links for all of those. And a lot of you, if you're joining us right now and live, you are live on YouTube or Facebook. And we want to say hi. And so if you're joining us on any of those places, say hi in the comments. We'd love to see you there. And that's also a great place to ask a question. Mm-hmm. Now, Scott, this is Scott's first time in the podcast. He preached last time. I think last time he preached, I don't know. We were taking a week off. We didn't get you in here.
I don't
somehow.
know if you were doing it, because the last time I preached was Daniel, when we were still meeting outside.
Oh yes.
I think it was November of 2020.
Maybe this is it's hard to know actually anymore. Time kind of gets away from you in the days of COVID. If that's true of anyone else, you can relate that it just doesn't always seem.
That's true. I don't know what date is most of the time anymore.
Well, now Scott is losing his mind, and that was his admission. No, I'm just
because I switched my day off.
That's right.
I got
confused. You did. Now, speaking of days off, you're going to get a few in a row, back to back of days off, which some people call that a vacation.
But they do.
They do.
I do. And so, leaving on Sunday to go nowhere.
So
for 2 weeks.
Now, Scott, I have to ask you, because that to me doesn't sound like a vacation, because I just, being home seems like at work sometimes. Not my wife. My wife is not work. My kids at times. My house.
My kids are grown.
It's true.
But so there's an unfortunate method to the madness, which is that I have way more vacation time than Derica does.
Yes.
And so I try to take as little vacation as I can so that we can have vacation time together.
So you can be together, yeah.
But she's going to be working.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be at home trying not to bug her.
Yeah.
So I got Padre game Friday night, Padre game Sunday afternoon, and then Angel game the following Friday night, Angel game the following Sunday afternoon.
There you go.
And then we'll figure it out.
There you go.
So now, a couple books.
And Scott, this is just in interest of helping our audience get to know you a little bit too. But I still remember, I'm intrigued by this because I remember one time you talked about going. You were off somewhere, I think visiting family, and you mentioned something that to me didn't make any sense. You said that your wife went out and she went out and traveled and visited things, but you stayed home.
I did.
And you sat there and you said that was the best vacation ever.
If my car does not leave the driveway for the week, win.
That's a vacation. All right.
Win.
All right. Well, I'm sure there's at least one other person out there like that.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No.
I haven't found him yet. It was Chip Whitman, and he moved to,
Is that right?
to
Was
Washington.
that his style of vacation?
Probably. Any introvert can understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a pastor and an introvert, that can be hard because a lot of your time is dealing with, people like me, or dealing with all sorts of people that you have to expel more energy.
Right. People don't think that I'm an introvert, but I am.
Yeah.
So they're surprised.
Okay. So now you get a little bit of time to refill that tank of introvertness.
Right.
Whatever that is. Some people are surprised that I'm not an introvert. That's
Well, I remember when you were, we were doing some work on
No.
spiritual disciplines, and
Yeah.
you were thinking about spiritual disciplines for the extrovert.
for the extrovert. Yes,
Because most spiritual disciplines are for introverts. It's
Yes.
silence, solitude, contemplation,
those
prayer,
introverts,
fasting.
they eat that stuff up.
Right.
Oh yeah, just give me alone and I can be all spiritual. Well, yeah, that's great, but I want to get in a room. I want to do this,
Right.
and I want to talk to you and to you, and this to me.
Right.
This is.
But I've learned from you
spiritual.
to experience the presence of God through the people of God.
There you go.
Right.
That's a good tagline for this. For this of our time, we're gonna experience the presence of God
Through
through the people.
Yep.
And through the scriptures and through you. So that's great. Hey, we're a little early, and so a lot of people are probably going to be catching this on the replay.
All right.
Or on it's because it stays live on YouTube and on Facebook, and so you can always catch us there or on the podcast feed. But we're a little early today on a Wednesday because we have this is first Wednesday of the month. And so our first Wednesday prayer night is tonight. And so if you are catching this prior to 6:30 on Wednesday night, then you still have time to make it out to the chapel. We'll be in the chapel, and it's going to be a sweet time of prayer. And I hope to see you there. I'm going to be there.
It would be a great way to apply the message, which if you need to stop and listen to. But one of the points was to be people of prayer.
That's right.
To be people who pray for Emmanuel faith. And so to come out on a Wednesday night, it is a prayer event, it is a corporate worship event, and it would be a way to apply the message. I will not be there because I'm gathering with my...
Like I say, not like I do. I'm just teasing.
I am gathering with my life group.
Yes.
And so we meet on Wednesday nights, and this crazy group of people want to meet all summer long, and we're gathering tonight. So I will not be there.
That's all right.
But the last one I went to was very meaningful, and it was something that I sort of went on all right, I'm going to go and do it. And then at the end, I was really glad that I went, just like I talked about in the message. Sometimes you got to engage your will.
So, okay. And that's, we're going to get there to that, because that concept, I think was something that everybody relates to, even if we don't necessarily want to admit that we relate to it.
Yeah.
That there are times when we just don't want to do what we know we should do. And one of those things is often going to church.
Yep.
Right. That there's just times when we wake up and it's the weekend. I remember talking to friends who are like, man, especially friends that have, we in the church industry, we call them real jobs, because sometimes we feel like, like they're actually let us do this for a job. They let us read the Bible and study and all these things and meet with people. But that's why we call the other jobs real jobs. But, Sunday's a work day for us. And so that's one of our big days. So we are prepared to work and we're show up and we, hopefully we work hard. But people who are not prepared to work, it's not their job. They're working another day of the week. And so this is coming to a place that at times they just don't want to, they don't want to give up that day.
I mean, I get it. I probably wouldn't want to get up on a Sunday morning and go to my wife's company.
Oh, goodness
all
gracious.
The time.
No, I do not want to go get up and hang out with my wife's kindergartners in her classroom on a Sunday or a Saturday or any day. I'm glad that my wife does that and not me. No, just teasing. I like going to see them, but that's it. That's a good point. And so, and yet, this is not a job. This is not a job. This is a place. This is different. And so we're actually going for different reasons. So let's do this. My Bible is somewhere, not here. And so I'm going to pull it up on my screen. But all
right.
But let's take a look at this passage a little bit. It's Psalm 122. And Scott, would you just give us a little bit of an overview of what you saw? Let's go back a little bit though, because we missed a week last week, and then I was gone the week before. Jeremy Johnson filled in, and he and Ryan, I peeked in a little bit just to make sure they were doing it all right. I'm just kidding. No, peeked in, and they were doing okay. But we're in a series called the Road Trip Playlist.
Yes, we are.
What's that about?
So these are the songs of ascent, the 15 songs from Psalm 120 to 134 that the that the ancient Hebrew people would sing on their way to Jerusalem. There were 3 feasts per year that they were instructed, that it was decreed for them to go up to.
Mhm.
It's thought that they probably, Luke 2 talks about Jesus and his family going up to the
Yeah.
Feast of Passover annually. So it's thought that maybe there was some squishiness in there where they were allowed to choose one. If you think about it, I mean, if you were gone 2 to 3 weeks a year,
Yeah.
3 times a year,
Yeah.
that you actually probably couldn't afford that.
I know.
What are you going to do with your crops? What are you going to do with your animals? Who's going to take care of stuff?
I
So,
know. And the math you did pointed out something interesting, okay? Because in the sermon, I remember you said, did you say 20 days? How many?
yeah. So if you were coming from, so what I did was, if you were Jesus and his family coming from Nazareth, it's a 90-mile journey,
90 miles. Okay.
and it's thought that most people could cover about 20 miles a day. So
Which is
4.5.
no small feat.
It's not.
That's a lot of, that's a long way.
If you're traveling with grandma and
Oh
grandpa
my
and
goodness, yeah.
aunts and uncles, and so if you're 4.5 to 5 days to get there,
Mhm.
and then some of the reading I did indicated that you could be there 1 to 2 weeks, and then say 5 days to get there, you're there for 14, so you're sitting at 19, and then 5 days to get back, you're looking at 24, so you're gone 3 weeks.
Wow.
And most people probably couldn't afford to do that 3 times a year.
No.
And as you pointed out in a meeting,
Yeah.
some of the feasts, the feasts in the summer, that is
So that between Pentecost and
Yes. Tabernacles.
Tabernacles, yes, there's only 50 days.
So you couldn't have probably even have done it. You'd have gotten
Yeah.
there, gotten back,
Turn
and then
back.
turned. So
You go to work for a day or two and
Yeah.
then turn around, right? Yeah, that doesn't
so
quite fit.
So anyway, this then is these are the songs that they sang.
Okay.
These were the 15 songs on their road trip playlist. I have a playlist on Spotify right now.
Mhm.
It's called the Yacht music group or something. And it's
Wow.
mostly music kind of out of the 80s and 90s, but that's what's on my playlist.
Okay.
But these 15 songs would have been on their playlist. And this song was anticipating arriving in the city,
All right.
into Jerusalem. And I mean, I just think in looking at it, sure, it was at some point, it was when they first got there and they're like, oh my, we're here. But then in subsequent years,
Yeah.
and then also one of the things I pointed out was if your David lived to be 70, and if that was the average lifespan, I'm sure that David probably had better, medical care, and he had a better diet. And
Yeah, being king. It's good to be king, is what I've heard.
That's what I've heard.
I've heard that.
So, but assuming, the average guy lived to be 70, and assuming that you started making that trip, sort of independently in your 20s, you could have gone 50 times, 30, 40, 50 times.
Yeah.
And 90 miles. I mean, so you could have gone from Bethlehem, which is 5 or 6. You could have made that journey in less than a day. A couple hours, you're there. Bada boom,
Yeah,
bada bing, and
there
you're
you go.
back. But there were people coming in from Nazareth, and
Okay.
it was a little bit of a journey.
It is. And so here we have them on their way. They've traveled, they've committed, they've set aside time and money
Mhm.
and all that to go into Jerusalem, and they're getting there. And it opens up with, I was glad when they said to me, let's go to the house of the Lord. Now, they're going to Jerusalem.
Mhm.
And what they're most glad about, though, is going to the house of the Lord.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And so it's sort of, it bookends it, right? It starts in verse 1. I was glad when they said, let's go to the house of the Lord. And then when you get to verse 9, it's for the sake of the house of the Lord that he's going to seek the good of the city of Jerusalem. So this is about going to the house of the Lord. This is about, and I think you get out of verse 1 when he says, I was glad when they, so you go immediately from singular to plural. I becomes they, and then they becomes us. So this is a group of people traveling together to go to Jerusalem together to worship the Lord. So it's a corporate worship thing. And I pointed that out in one of the couple of the services. I might have missed it at 9:00, but this isn't about how to nurture your passion for private worship. This is about how to nurture your passion for corporate worship.
Got it.
Because and David was looking forward to corporate worship.
Yeah, okay. And so you're saying that's why they've held on to this one and put it in this place. That this was David wrote this down, saying, this is his joy of corporate worship, and they've kept that in our book so that we can then pray that same thing and and as you put it, how did you put that phrase? Kind of help our corporate worship, our passion for
Nurture
corporate
our
worship,
passion.
nurture our passion.
One
Yeah.
of the things I said was this was David's strategy for helping these pilgrims join him in his joy.
Okay. Joy in
Right.
his
So,
joy. I like
and
that.
one of the things I thought about was if this was a psalm about, because when I first started studying it, I thought it was a song that they had about arriving. But then I
Got it.
thought if it was a song about arriving, which it is, but then why wouldn't you put it at the end? Why would it be third? So then I began to think, no, this is a song about arriving, but it's also a song about anticipation. It's a song about expectation, that as we're going, we're looking forward to being there. And here are the things that we're looking forward to when we get there.
Yeah.
You know, so you told me of there's a special place south of a special place that you always go to.
That's right. So because we were talking about this, I guess, in the context that as we remember that thing, okay, that place, as we nurture that passion to be there, that excitement, the joy of that thing, it gives us energy to keep going, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're saying? Like, yeah. So yeah, that's right. We were talking about this, and that's how this fits. Okay, good. This is great. I used to lead backpacking trips a bunch, and I would lead them in the high Sierras. We'd go out of Bishop area, if you know it, into Mammoth sometimes, and we'd go all throughout there. But we'd always come back to Bishop, because in Bishop there was a sizzler.
I was going to put that in my sermon, and I couldn't fit it in.
Yeah. There was a sizzler, and there'd be times on the trail. So this is I get what you're like saying David is doing, because on the trail we would get tired. We would get like ready to be done, ready to go home, say like, I just want to stop. And then we'd look at each other and be like, remember, Sizzler's coming. Sizzler's just around this bend, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we just got to go a little bit further, and there's Sizzler. Now, it was often 3 or 4 nights down the road, but it was something we talked about. It was ready to get to Sizzler. Because then we would go to Sizzler and we would eat until we were sick. So I don't recommend that, but that idea is what you're saying. They're getting excited, and gives them the energy, even the desire, passion to keep going on this hard journey. That's good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Okay, so they're describing Jerusalem in this psalm, and that's what they're doing. They're building that sense of anticipation.
They are, yeah. I mean, again, looking forward to like you and others have had seasons in your life where you went to Disneyland a lot. I don't know, maybe as your kids get older, that kind of fades out. But when your kids are younger, and there's things that you remember. I mean, there's we can all remember. I remember with my daughter on my shoulders, so she could see. Nobody else could see, because we blocked everybody else's view, but so that she could see the electric light parade, or whatever the name of that parade was. Why am I saying electric light orchestra? Electric slide parade, whatever.
Not electric slide. That's a dance. It's a good one.
It's been so long since I've gone. But everybody can remember, right?
The light parade, electric light parade.
There you go. And I think everyone can relate to that for the most part. Most everyone can relate to that.
I kind of want my kids to want to go to Disneyland, because I'd love to go, but I kind of don't, because it's expensive.
You can only go once.
Yeah, right. I know.
So anyway, they're looking forward to this place. And so there's power in place, right? There's power in remembering a place. It nurtures a desire to be in that place, right? And I think that's why we take pictures when we go on vacation. I mean, I have a picture of my wife and I on my phone of us. You can see it, they can't, but we're getting on we're getting
a wonderful picture, ladies and gentlemen.
I
don't know, it definitely doesn't work on the audio version of the podcast, and so
I don't know if it's going to work.
This is quite an old picture. So Scott is right now showing us a picture of a small child. Well, he's not small, because he is 6'5",
6'6" then. But this was a picture of us getting on the cruise ship on our honeymoon.
There
So
you
that
go.
picture is 28 years old.
28
But I
years old.
keep it
There
on
you
my
go.
phone because it reminds me of
Yeah.
that, this makes me want to go home and see my wife
That's so cool.
because it brings back good memories. And I think so that's some of what David's doing
Yeah.
here. And that's what I try to bring out in the message about talking about how Emmanuel faith is our Jerusalem in a sense.
There you
And
go.
so the power of place here, remembering the good things that God does when we come here, fuels our desire to come here.
There you go. Well, I mean, good news. You were 12 when you got married, so it looked like if you saw the picture, you saw that.
Yeah, it was 28 years.
Scott
Derek probably won't watch this.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell her.
Bill Williams says that Dollywood, I think he's talking about our reference to Disneyland, is only $69. Now, I don't know what that is. Is that is Dollywood the Dolly Parton place? Is that really a thing?
I think it is.
Or is this an
You
advertisement?
must be living in Tennessee or
I
something.
know that's
Nashville.
somewhere else, and you
But it
can
would cost
sing
us
songs of praise.
$500 to get there.
Yeah, I think Bill wants us to move there or something like that. Hey, I'm sorry, but we're already in the promised land.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, okay. No, speaking of promised land, look at I'm trying to turn that back to the promised land,
yes.
which is not Southern California, I'm told. Although it seems like it, if you just look outside right now.
It is today, Bill. I bet your humidity is a little higher than ours.
I know. They're going to this place that has been referred to as the promised land, right? This is the place that there's the promise, that there's something special about this place.
Mm-hmm.
But what is, as you read this text in particular, what is the thing that was most special about this place?
Well, it was where the presence of God was for them. And I wanted to do a little bit more research and I couldn't get to it, but I just wondered what the spiritual life was like. If you only got to go to where the presence of the Lord was 1 to 3 times a year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're living in Nazareth, 90 miles away. What was I'd like to do a little bit more research on that. I'm not sure. They weren't obviously, they were experiencing God's faithfulness but I guess they were going specifically to worship corporately. So I don't know the answer. If anybody knows the answer to that, I'd love to know what is the answer to that. But.
So they're going to the house of the Lord.
They're going to the house of the Lord.
And this is unique to us because I don't know that we don't think about God that way.
Right.
We don't think about God being localized into a place. Right. In fact, we've been taught the exact opposite. Right. That and that's the truth. Actually, I mean, the truth is that is what some part, a good part of the good news is that Jesus came, tore down the walls of the dividing wall, and that's the dividing wall between people, but also the curtain was torn between God and man, so that we have access to God because of what Jesus has done, right?
Well, and I always remember being taught that when I left church, I didn't leave God at church.
Oh,
right. When you leave church, you don't leave him here; you take him with you.
Yeah.
So. But when they left him there.
Yeah. Huh. And so that was the only place they could meet with God.
Yeah.
Is that place. Now things are very different today that you and I, anyone who is a believer in Jesus is themselves, that the Spirit of the living God dwells in them, that they are like temples.
Yes.
Right. Which is really, really interesting. But this is a different mindset because they don't have access to God the same way that we do. And so they have to travel there. Now, the closest thing that relates to today, that this an excitement for a place, and in a place, and especially with the corporate worship side, and what you related this to was our desire to come to church, right? To come gather together. Now, not to say that the church directly replaces the house of God, the temple, right? But it is, at least in the corporate worship side, that's the direct relation to that, right? Because here we are, a bunch of temples now sort of coming together, and clearly the Bible does talk about us being something more when we gather. There's something greater about individual. And this is why I think you ended with at least your challenge at the end after your sermon was Hebrews passage, Hebrews 10. They do not give up meeting together,
Yes.
as some are in the habit of doing, but consider how we can spur one another on, right?
Right.
That there's something powerful about getting together, and that's a good thing. But it begs the question of why don't we want to more?
Yeah, great question. I mean, first thing that came to my mind, spiritual warfare.
Okay.
The second thing that came into my mind was spiritual diet. Along the lines of, we're not, if you're living 5-6 days sort of apart, excuse me, from God or the ways of God, and then all of a sudden it's time to go.
There you
And because I've heard it said that even starving men lose their appetite.
Even starving men
eventually
Interesting.
lose their appetite. So
Yeah.
if you're not spending time with God during the week, then you're like, well, why aren't I feeling this? Well, I have a couple ideas, and there's other things too. You can't party it up on Saturday and then go and confess it all up on Sunday, but that's another conversation for another time.
Yeah. And Bill says, it sometimes just laziness.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to be lazy.
Well, and you know what I think too? All right. So people, you may get mad at me. We've made it too easy for people to stay home.
We've made it too easy.
Technology makes it easy for people to stay home.
So we've put it online and called it church online. And
there's a value to it for people who cannot make it.
Sure.
But for those who can and don't, it's just, I got to get up. I got to get shaved. I got to get a shower. I got to get to church, or I could brew a pot of coffee and make some cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes they just go with B.
And this is the thing. I think that kind of authenticity of actual people, seeing and touching actual people, is something that we've learned over these last 16 months, whatever it's been. We've learned that there is a real value there. Now, we've also learned how to get by without it, right? So, and I'm air quoting "get by" because it's not really getting by. And I think what you're saying is that it's not really church. You can view a sermon, you can learn some things, right? And we have already told people to go back and learn some things. It's a good thing to do. You can even worship it privately, right? You can you can listen to those songs and you can sing along, but it's just not church,
right?
Is what you're getting at. And I think that's true. One of the principles, this just reminds me of that we used to do, and I'm holding up my phone because oftentimes when small groups of students would get around and sit around a table for their small group time, they'd pull out their phones and they'd be doing this. And now, if I just sat here, even on a podcast, and did this the whole time, you would probably think, and I'm like pretending to
talking
text
to my kids.
You'd probably think that I don't care too much about you, or I don't care too much about you or what you're saying. I care more about this. And so what we tell people is that the person across from you is more important than the person across the world right now. Right now. Now, not always. At times, that person's going to take priority. But I think when we go to church, what we're telling people is that they're important. And yet, here's the other problem, though. I think people often go to church with a totally opposite question in their mind. They're thinking, what can I get from it? What do I get, right? And if that's your mentality, man, I kind of say might as well just go online, because you can get the knowledge, right? You can get all the same commentaries that we use to study. You can find those online.
Don't tell them that.
You can't get the years of experience and wisdom. No, I hate to say it. You can probably even find a better sermon. I'm preaching this week on Psalm 124, and I'm guessing you maybe be able to find a better sermon on Psalm 124 than I'm going to preach next week.
Yep.
I doubt it, but I'm just kidding. I'm sure you can, right? If you're going just to get something out of church, then you might as well just look online. But if you're going to give and to be a part of something, then that's different.
That's right.
But as one of the things that I thought of in listening to your sermons, that we have a consumer mentality of church at times, right? That it's all about what I get out of it, and what you were challenging them to do is to set that aside and go anyway, even if you don't feel like it,
right? And go and be a nice person. I mean, go and be a person of peace.
There you go.
I mean, I was not. I mentioned it, I think at maybe 10:45. But I had friends who moved into the area and started attending Emmanuel Faith and found a seat down in the bottom section and were informed by somebody that they were in the wrong seats because they were in their seats. And rather than stay down in the down in the bowl, I call it down there, and try to guess, am I in the right person's seat or the wrong person? They just went up to the balcony, and I thought, well, this is just kind of ridiculous because, again, someone was coming.
Yep.
I joked around. I said, if you want to buy a seat license from me, you can have your own seat.
That's good.
But to come and be, what can I give? Right? What can I give? You're going to get because God. I mean, the giver, you're going to get because God's going to give. But but if you come to meet with God and be with His people and try, like the Hebrews 10, 23 and 24 and 25, to encourage one another and to spur other people on to love and good deeds. I'm doing that to you and you're doing that to me, that I'm going to get in, I'm going to give.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, Jesus says better to give than to receive. And so, and yet in the giving you receive. That's what you're saying. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. It's not what did I heard once our pastor call it a lecture and a concert, right? It's
that's good.
It's not that, it's but when I see you see it because you see the same groupings of people. They look forward. Well, why else would you get to church at 30 to 45 minutes early before the first service? But other than to sit and talk with your friends that you haven't maybe seen all week, that you love, that you genuinely love. And so there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But you're right. The consumerism is we just make it.
We do.
And also we've mixed up this idea of emotions and authenticity. That if I get this from I hear this from people that it can't be authentic if my heart's not in it. And and I think, well, goodness gracious, if that were the approach that any parent would have taken towards their kids, you authentically ate that dinner that my heart was not in preparing for you, right? You authentically enjoyed that Wi-Fi that I did not feel like paying that bill. So I don't think that authenticity and feelings are necessarily related. And sometimes I think when you make the decision to be obedient and love and worship, even when you're and of course you're being honest, right? It's like, God, I love you. My heart's not in it, but I'm going to go. I'm going to engage my will. How much more authentic can you be than doing something maybe when you're totally not feeling it?
Yeah.
But you're doing, that's probably the most unselfish you'll ever be.
Oh yeah. So, because I feel like I do hear people say things like, well, I don't want to go. I don't think my heart would be in it.
Right.
Or something like that. Or, and so what you're saying is that actually the act of going is part of the act of getting your heart into it.
Yes. Yeah.
And of actually taking the step to do it. And in fact, I think what you're getting at, there's more of a virtue there when you don't want to.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Because if you're just doing what you want all the time,
right, then
you're not building character there. You're just doing what you want, and any kid can do what he wants.
But my dog does what it wants.
Yes.
Sorry to be kind of crass.
Yeah.
That's all my dog does. All my dog does for the most part is what it wants.
Yep.
I've
Yep.
trained it on a few things.
You've trained it because but then it knows that it gets what it wants
Yeah,
when it does
it gets the
thing, right?
greenie.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's really just doing what it wants. It's very selfishly motivated. And that kind of motivation isn't a godly motivation. It's not going to build character. It's not going to build any of the virtues there
Right.
that we want to build. But doing the thing even when you don't want to, that's where you build discipline. And I think you learn something, right? I mean, you learn that you don't always have to wait to have the right heart, the right emotions.
Right.
It actually going can produce that, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, that was one of the points that that Eugene Peterson talked about. That worship
Yeah.
is a way of growing your devotion for God.
That's
So
right.
if you want to grow your love for God, go and worship Him in the presence of other believers. Like say
Yeah.
Wednesday at 6:30.
There you go.
Like a prayer thing.
There you go.
And so you go and you do that. And so this was a very interesting thing, and I raised it as a sort of a, hey, think about this. But the fact that we grow our love and devotion for God as we go and worship. We don't worship necessarily out of our love and devotion for God.
Yeah.
It's like backwards.
That was a great, and you quoted Eugene Peterson. You put it
Yeah.
on the screen, right? Do you
Yeah.
remember what that was?
That quote was that we try to get it right, that it's much easier to act your way into a feeling than it is to feel yourself into an action.
It's
easier to act yourself into feeling than to feel your way into acting.
Act your way into feeling rather than to feel your way into an action.
You'll get there much faster if you I think what was that movie? Fireproof talked about sometimes you just have to lead your heart. Don't follow it. You have to lead it. No, sometimes you got to follow your heart. I don't think that's a hard and fast axiom. But if your heart's not leading you in a direction that's good, then you got to lead your heart.
Yeah.
But if your heart's leading you in a good direction, you follow your heart. But we were talking before that, for a long time I had felt like, gosh, I just want to be reading. I want to read more. I'd buy books and they would stack up next to my, side of the bed there. And I found lots of reasons not to read. And then I just decided, doggone it, I'm going to start reading. And I started to read. And as I started to read, my desire and my passion to read grew.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, I just want to read.
There you go.
But it started with a decision, with engaging the will and not waiting until I finally felt like, okay, now I'm at the point where I'm going to go ahead and do this. I just like, do I want to be a person who reads or not? And if I want to be a person who reads, I'm going to have to read even when I'm not feeling like it. But guess what? The feelings will follow. That was one of the things we're more shaped by our practices than we are by our passions.
Yes. We're more shaped by our
practices than we are by our passions.
So what we do influences our passions more than our passions influences what we do, is what you're getting at. Yeah. But it seems like there's a bit of a little circular there in a sense, in that or it's a cycle, I guess I should say. And if you want the right passions, start acting in the right way, and that will develop passions, and then those passions will continue to the actions a little bit better, right? I mean, that's interesting.
So it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily a hard and fast kind of a
it's wisdom, though.
It is.
It reminds me of a C.S. Lewis quote, and I just pulled this up. Yes, he says, this is in Mere Christianity, and he says this: the rule. I love that he uses the rule. The rule for all of us is perfectly simple: do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Okay, in other words, don't worry about if you that building up that passion. Oh, I really want to love my neighbor. I really, really want to. He says this: act as if you did. Act as if you love your neighbor. He says, as soon as we do this, we find one of the great secrets. When you are behaving as if you love someone, you will precisely come to love him. There is indeed one exception. If you do him a good turn, you do a good thing for him, right? He says, not to please God and obey the law of charity, okay, the law of love, but to show him what a fine, forgiving chap you are, and to put him in your debt. and then sit down to wait for his gratitude, you will probably be disappointed, he says. I love that. But he's getting at this idea that at times, I mean, here's the kind of crass way to put it, that you've got to fake it until you make it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That the best way to do it is to just go, and then
Well, Nike,
yeah,
just do it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's interesting. So maybe Eugene Peterson was riffing a little bit off of C.S. Lewis, because it kind of seems like they're saying the same thing.
Yeah, or maybe all of them were riffing off of David.
Well, there you go. That's true. Oh, even better. That's true. There you go.
There you go. So, and so now, at the same time, I mean, we're not guilting people for.
Oh no,
people don't need to feel more guilt for missing church. Okay?
No.
We get it. We've been there. In fact, can I be honest with you?
You didn't go.
I didn't go to church.
You didn't listen to my sermon.
Yeah, no, I did listen to your sermon. I did. I didn't go worship together. I didn't. I was prepping the.
Yeah, you did a great job on that too.
The Sunday Fun Day, but and this, I guess I can admit this here. This is a safe place, right? Because this is a podcast. We're processing with you. But I have to admit something to you. When I go on vacation, I almost never go to church.
Well, I mean, I'm here to tell you, I'll be sitting in Petco on Sunday and Anaheim Stadium the following.
There you go.
So, yeah, and so
there you go. And some of that is because church at times can feel like work.
Yeah.
And so now, and there are times when I go anyway, and there has been times when we were on vacation, different city, and I went to a church, ended up meeting people, had a great time. And that was one of those where I thought, I don't want to go because it feels like work, because every time I go, I feel like, I've got to think about this and but the sound isn't right. And, this, all the details of church get in my head and I just can't focus. It actually happens most, in the church I grew up at.
Oh yeah.
The church I grew up at is, for me, I love it. It's a great church, Lake Avenue Church, wonderful church. You should go there. For some reason though, because I grew up there, there's just so many other things going on, and I know enough people to, it's just hard. It's hard for me to go there. Sorry, Lake Avenue. But when I do go, when I do push through that I don't want to, I often feel like it's a great time. But then again, there are times when it's okay.
Right. You're right. I didn't want, and so that was one of the things I did not want to guilt anybody into feeling like they had to go, but just to more paint the privilege and the joy that comes when you make that decision. Yeah. And so, I know there's grace. There's grace.
That's right.
So,
yep. Well, Marilyn Ramirez is commenting in about how the church encourages small groups, and Scott, that's something
that's me.
That's what Scott does here, and so. It's a great place to get to know people. And so that's the other part that Sunday has become, the church's holy day, right? And in a sense, I mean, it's not really that, but it's Resurrection Day. So some people get confused about the Sabbath, that some people will kind of mix up what day the Sabbath is. The Sabbath is not Sunday. Sabbath is Saturday. Sabbath. The Sunday is the first day of the week. Sabbath is the last day of the week. And so in the kind of Jewish week, that's when their worship day is on the Sabbath. But ours, we chose the Resurrection Day, the day that Jesus rose from the dead. So to be the church's holy day, it sets them apart a little bit back in the day. But then again, I know churches that have service on Tuesdays. That's their worship service, and that's okay. There are meaningful ways to get involved online, and if you're out there and you don't have a community and your only place to fellowship in any meaningful way is an online service, even if you're out of the country, and you may not know anyone around, then joining a church online is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but we'd also love to see if we can help you get involved. Both in a church and then get involved in a small group and, see how that can help you grow and help you get connected all the more.
Yep. And I think because part of that is that one of the things David looked forward to was he looked forward to seeing the people,
That's right.
right? And
That's right.
that was, I mean, that was one of his points. That was the idea about the tribes of the Lord.
Yeah.
Oops, I flipped to me in verse 4, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
which the tribes go up. And so I thought, there were people he looked forward to seeing
Yeah.
every week. I remember when I was, I told the story in writing team. I think you were there, but when I was growing up, I swam. I swam competitively, and so we would, I go to swim practice every day, 4 to 6 p.m., 365 days a year. Well, maybe 363, probably 362, probably not on Thanksgiving. And then not on Christmas if Christmas fell, not on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, if those 2 days were in the middle of the week.
Wow.
And then not on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. But other than
I
that,
didn't know that.
and then, from when I was maybe aged 7 or 8 until I stopped, I think, when I went into junior high.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, so we would develop friendships with kids on other swim teams who lived around the Southern California area. And we would see them at swim meets. So we might see them once a month, or I would spend most of my Saturdays at a swim meet, up early, swimming all day, and then back home, and then church on Sunday. But there was an excitement to, go and, swim in the meet, but then also to see
your friends.
And then if you had a special connection with a swimmer of the opposite sex that you look forward to seeing.
I see.
Right. You would see her.
I see the motivation now.
Exactly. There was looking forward to the people, seeing the people.
Are you trying to say that people should come to church to find that person?
No,
I think that's what you said.
I think,
ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. I'm just kidding.
That may be a byproduct, and that'd be a wonderful byproduct.
Well, just in general, the connections with people that's what we tell people all along. Right. That's what it is another thing we learned through COVID again and again, is that the church is the people, not the building. Yeah. We didn't get to meet in the building, and yet we met outside at times, and we met online at times, and tried to come up with ways to interact with the people.
But it just wasn't the people that I interacted with when we were stuck online only. Like our life group, kind of continued to meet all throughout underground, and no, actually we did go virtual for a while, but it wasn't the same. I noticed more of sort of a spiritual lethargy.
Yeah.
Maybe a depression, and as we were able to come back, I noticed there's power in the bond.
Yeah, and the more real it is, the better. So, okay,
yeah.
I mean, the fact that we can do this, that there is video chatting, okay, that's a step above.
Yeah.
Just chatting, or just a phone call, or just emailing or stuff like that. Obviously, that's better. And once they can do the hologram thing, that might be a step better.
Actually,
I don't know.
We are doing a hologram. I'm actually I'm at the beach right now.
that might be better, and I'm sure technology will help with this. But at the same time, I think what you're getting at is that there is something about being in the presence,
right,
and being there together,
right.
And that I don't think will change, at least not anytime soon.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think we were, as much as possible, whenever possible, that we were created to be, face to face and to worship corporately. So again, lots of grace, no legalism.
That's right.
But everybody, anyway.
Well, I mean, it is a privilege.
Incarnational, that's the word I was looking for. Incarnational.
It's a good phrase. As Carolyn Schmidt said, it's a privilege to get to go to church. That is a privilege we share, and that was neat that it got to. You can't hug a hologram, Carolyn says. Also, that's true. Good point. But it is a privilege to go to church, and that's why it was very appropriate that this was the passage on our Independence Day.
Right. Only God could do that.
All right.
I mean, I don't think Ryan planned that out.
No.
It's just because actually we had a meeting. And we said, okay, there's 15 Psalms, but we're only doing 12
That's true.
weeks.
We did. We cut out some.
So we cut out 3.
Yep.
And we could very easily have cut out, say, Psalm 121, which would have put then Psalm 122 on the last week of June.
Yep.
And I could have been preaching 124 on. And then you could have been doing
good passage.
125. But
you'd have liked 124. It's a fun one.
So one of the things that I have learned throughout the years is that, I mean, sometimes we plan these things.
Yep.
and it looks brilliant, and then other times we don't,
Yep.
and it looks even more brilliant because God's just working things
I
out.
know. You know what? This next week, just one of those. It just seems to work this way, 'cause like you're saying, and I think maybe there's a greater mind at work. Maybe. Just kidding. Of course, there's. But if you're reading along with us in our yearly reading program that you kind of read through the Bible every year, that actually on Sunday we'll be reading this passage.
Oh, no way.
We'll be reading Psalm 124.
124.
Yeah. So you get to hear it twice if you come and you read in the morning. And then
Wow.
you'll hear it that day.
That's amazing.
I don't know. How would that work? It just did. I didn't plan it.
That tells me how far behind I am. My reading.
Well, that's okay. Once again, there's grace.
I used to tell people, yes, find a plan that serves you, not that
There
you
you
serve.
go. That's right. The plan was made for you, not you for the plan.
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
That's right.
Well, everybody, Scott, this is a lot of fun. Thank you for.
Has it been an hour?
Well, it's been
Almost.
close.
Wow.
And I need to go prep for tonight. We've got so I'm preaching tonight this weekend, but also running this prayer night tonight. So it's going to be a good one. We're going to be praying through the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, all about Jesus. We kind of chose the opposite in a sense. We're doing Psalms on the weekends, and so I thought, let's go something where it's all about Jesus. And so we're going to be praying through a passage in the book of Hebrews, and so but I didn't mean to cut you off. Is there?
No,
There's something you want to?
Nope. That's
one last thing that you didn't get to.
No, not that I could cover in 10 minutes or less.
Right? There's a few things in there, right? I know there are a few things.
There was a lot in there.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Scott,
thank you.
Thank you for your preparation on this, and thanks for all your hard work. And I pray that your vacation of not going anywhere is actually a vacation.
My staycation
for you.
But if the Padre game gets over early enough on Sunday, I might show up for the 5 o'clock service because I do want to see how Ryan.
That's commitment, and that would be you living out the actual challenge you gave.
Yeah,
you gave us. Yeah.
I will sit in the balconies. It's not actually corporate worship because I'm the only one up there.
That's right, in your mask and all. No. All right, everybody. Well, blessings to you. It's always our desire and hope that you would learn how to live and love this thing we call life, and that you would do it well. And that's why the Vitalogy is the study of life, the life that God's given us. And so we're thankful to spend this time with you, and we pray that you have a great week. We'll see you next time. I think Ryan will be back.
I won't.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I'll be replaced by somebody better looking.
No, you'll be on vacation.
That's true.
All right. God bless everybody. Thank you, Scott. Take care.